Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to Prime Hour this Monday edition, the 5th of September 2022. We're going this evening. We're going to be talking about back to school, asking the questions whether we should still keep our children in the southwest and northwest regions at home. Is this not the time to increase the enrollment, going by the scores recorded during the last year GCE examinations? Are there just courses to keep our children back at homes in Mamfe, in Manu Division, in Kupe Maneguba Division, in Menchum Division, and all the divisions of the southwest and northwest regions? Should we today give excuses why we should keep our children back at home? We are discussing this with our panelists who are in the studio. Dr. Micheal Ndimancho, who is a lecturer in some universities across Cameroon. We are glad to have you for this first edition of this week. Good evening, welcome.
Thanks so much, Mr. Liu, for inviting me once more, especially to talk about schools reopening. And of course, this is one of the things I stand to defend as a teacher. And I think that every child has a right to go back to school. And as I've often said, anyone who touches on the school touches on the temple. And I usually call that a temple of learning. And when you touch on the school, you keep every other person alert, because no one will support that you touch on a temple of learning. And I think that today we should be able to encourage each and every one, without distinction in Cameroon, to be tolerant and let the innocent children have their place, have their future, build their future, and that every family should be together with those of the north and the southwest regions to be able to come together and right the wrongs of our past and be able to look forward and build a better future for our country, Cameroon. And the best future can only be built if we send our children to school, because the children are the future of Cameroon. And we think that that should hold and that should be respected by each and everyone without distinction. If you're fighting your fight, let that fight not touch your school, let that fight not touch northern children. And I think that we stand to guard that.
Also with us is Nji Lucas. He is a very active member of Cameroon Civil Society, working tirelessly to get students who have not the opportunity to go to schools to go back to school to receive education in Boya, my 16 to be precise. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Liu, and good evening, Dr. Ndimancho. It is a pleasure to be here tonight to look into the issues which we have, which involves education. And what is worth mentioning is the fact that education is something that we should not jeopardize, because no matter what happens, even in the worst state ever, we never stop seeing persons going to school. I understand that a whole lot is happening in the northwest and southwest, where some people feel like holding the child back at home is going to help in this case. What you need to understand is that education stands at the center of the life of everybody. If you think of that child becoming that person that will serve as your support system when you go old, this can only come through education. And I always say this, especially to some of the persons we are managing, that Jesus said we do not die because the devil is so wicked. He says we die because the lack of knowledge. Now you may want to ask yourself, what kind of knowledge are we lacking of? What exactly is happening that we are dying the way we are dying? I think it's because there is lack of knowledge. So if you want to solve that financial problem, if you want to solve that political problem, if that person does not understand the political system, he cannot change it. So in effect, education is not limited to the classroom. It is one of the reasons why Rehabet decided to set up a center which would determine a safe space for the kids, because we understood that in times like this, especially within the time we had to set up that center, it was not easy for kids to go to school. So this is to tell you that we cannot sit on the fence when education is concerned. We have to be in the fence, because it is only through education that the transformation we are talking about can come through. Even that person who is carrying that gun, it was produced by somebody who studied that particular engineering to create that weapon. So imagine that that weapon was not there. How would you have had that understanding? to pull that trigger. To pull a trigger, you were taught. So you need to understand that education is something that we should not negotiate for anything. Yes, there are problems, even in a home, especially in a home where there are problems or where there is a problem between the man and the woman. The state will always come in to ask, I hope the children are not affected with your troubles. This is to tell you that the child's education should not be touched. I know for sure that education was one of the tools which was used in 2016 and 2017, especially in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, to push forward a particular cry because they had identified some things that were not right within our educational system. However, that tool has a ripple effect, and that effect is that today we have a lot of drugs, we have a lot of children having children, we have a lot that is happening. Parents can no longer understand their kids. I think it's because what occupied the kids before now is being given to the hands of persons who do not deserve it. I'm talking about education. So some of them could not even read their books to understand the effects of what they are into. Thank you.
Okay, we're also in the company of I'm already reading some of the comments relating to what is going to be happening on Wednesday. Pretty Dr. Ndmancho, I'm not taking good evening to you. Tah Jarvis, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kum. Special good evening to the President-elect William Ruto in Kenya. A special good evening to Raila Odinga. And also good evening to the peace-loving people of my village, Way Village to be more precise. Good evening to the peace-loving people of the Southwest and Northwest region in general, especially to the teachers, especially to the students who are risking it all to have education. It is an important topic that we are discussing this evening, and we must understand that people have their individual opinion, and in as much as they have their individual opinion, there is a general view of the nation and every society. And so we must in all way promote what we think can as well develop the community in general before looking at our personal opinion. I think we are living in a world of subsets where we have A union B, union C, and in that subset, what is the field of experience, as we always call in journalism, better known in local parlance as the common ground? It is education, health, and culture. So to me, I think that today is a day where we should take it as a moment of reflection for our brothers and sisters in the respective regions of the Northwest and Southwest region to call into mind and look at the tenets binding a growth and development of the region. Do we want a region that will be retarded in growth? There is something we call, Mr. Kum, in economic as sustainability. And every nation, the reason why there is education, formal learning and teaching is because a nation is preparing for sustainability. Sustainability simply means is the ability to uphold the standard of a society regardless of whether people are aging or dying or not. There is replacement. And when you look at education, it plays that key role. For far too long, we've been told that education is the key to success. Of course, the key must not necessarily be the ability where you go and look for a job, but also the ability to create jobs and empower society. In the next 50 years, some of us may not be alive. In the next 60 years, some of us will not be alive. And if this war continues with students out of school, I ask the question, who are those that will be doctors? Who are those that will help those who are in the bushes to get familiar with some of the policies of the economy, the society, and all the other issues that we are here to discuss? So to me, I want to say that it is a beautiful start of we in the Southwest region, as Governor Bela Okada said, close to 1,000 something schools open up. This is rare as compared to when this crisis started and metamorphosed.
Okay. I'll start with you, Dr. Ndimancho. Are the motives strong enough to keep our students at home in the Southwest and Northwest regions?
In fact, in the 21st century, I would say there aren't any motive, especially in the world today when we have to, when the world is changing so fast because of the desire, the aspiration, the zest of the youth. We are what today, the world is changing through the Android to the Android generation from the analog, and we are enjoying it because of the desires of the youth. And if we go by this, I will really think that there is no reason why we should keep our children at home. Given to the fact that according to Article 28 of the United Nations Committee on Rights of Children, which states that every child without distinction has a right to education, no matter the race, the gender, or even the disability. And I'll even add that no matter the region, no matter the circumstance that the child finds itself, every child has a right to go to school. And therefore, those who have gone to school and they are knowledgeable, they have no right to stop other children from actually attaining that level where they are today. If we go by the fact that those who actually are preventing children from going to school are the very people who are enjoying from the product, are enjoying from that education that was given to them by their own parents, by their own country, by their own tribe. I mean, they are enjoying it today and per se depriving other children from achieving the very education. If you go by the fact that these very people have their children in very good schools, and of course, schools abroad, and pay very huge sums of money because they know the importance of education for their children, and that they are the very people who want to prevent other children from going to school, then we say there is no reason to stop children from going to school. If you want to see the look at it politically, to know that these people who are stopping children from going to school are people who have a hidden agenda, who think that tomorrow we are going to have two regions who are actually under-scholarized, and that they are going to come back to rule under that region, and that is a deliberate, a premeditated attempt to keep these children, these youth, on the low level of education, so that when they come back, they may be able to unpick them and rule them better. And then we can say that there is no reason why, of course, 850,000 schools or children should not be going to school. I mean, it is a sad situation. Then we should say that every child has a right, and every child should go to school. And I say this vehemently, that every child has the reason, and every other person has the duty to leave the children of the Northwest and the Southwest go back to school this September.
Yes, Nji Lucas, you are running an institution in the Southwest region, my 16 to be precise, where you have taken children who have not been given opportunity to go to school to at least receive some form of education. Why did you engage in this?
When the crisis started, and being a young man also who never had the privilege to go to school at a certain point in my life, I sat and I observed that the kids never had the same privilege which I never had to go to school. And we had to put our hands together and get some persons of goodwill, and we created the safe space which we call the Center for Education in Rehabet, where we saw that we had 3 categories of children that we decided to support. We have the less privileged within the community, we have the orphans within the community, and we have the IDPs that came to add it to this. And by 2018, I observed personally that it was not an easy situation. I personally took up a book and a pen where I moved around the communities to speak to the people, to get their own opinion with regards to education, because I said, with the little I now have, it was enough for me to also bring out, like the Bible puts it, that freely you have received, freely you should give. Some of us were privileged to have been received by some persons of goodwill who supported us, and the only thing we thought of was to why not give back to the people. So by 2018, during the 3rd term holiday, we came together as a team and decided to set up Rehabet, which stands for Recover, Rehabilitate for Better Tomorrow. And we had to put up a center in my 16 where the IDP and the above mentioned category stands at the center of our activity, because this category of persons come in without any payment of what they call management fee. because these are the people whom we decided. So some other persons of goodwill for the past years have been in support of this, and they have been supporting this category of persons whom we have had. Others who have written the ordinary level, some wrote the advanced level, whom we supported. Some, given that what they want to study, we never had the means, we had to send them to lycée where they studied. We supported them with the tuition fee that is there. We supported those who decided to go to the government technical high school. And we had others who decided that they want to learn a particular trade. And as we speak, we have some who are currently taking up certain trades, such as car body repair, that is auto car body repair, basically known as panabiting. We have others who are into car spraying and in other sectors. And as an organization whose objective is to ensure that no child sits in the house, since 2018 till our counting, we have not relent our effort. We have been supporting the persons on the ground because we think that as an organization with the objective and as a human rights institution, and personally as a human rights defender, I had no reason but to support this because it is enshrined as the right of the child to education within the different charters which Cameroon has ratified. So within the context of the crisis, I observed and I was greatly inspired by Malala, the Pakistani young woman, who is today a Nobel Peace Prize winner with the United Nations, who was shot on the head severally and undergone surgery and survived, and today she was already supporting others. So when I look at the entire situation, I said to myself that the no school strategy that was put up by those who were able to open the eyes by 2016 of the people with regards to what is happening in the Northwest and Southwest region as a tool, which was really not something that would have been used, but for the fact that they called for school boycott and expected that parents will understand this in the later part of it. And most of the parents who heeded to this did not understand. I could vividly recall that by 2017, I persuaded the schools where my children were schooling, calling on the administrators of the schools when would be the opening date, to the extent where some of them told me that as it stands, they cannot force the doors open. And all they had to do was to relent. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I had to respect that particular part, and I told them, well, if this is the case, then I have no choice but to listen to what you guys have got to say, that until when things are okay before you open your doors. So I called them severally. I even went to the school campus because I saw no reason to keep my children at home, given that with the parental gap which I had with regards to education, that gave me no reasons to relent my effort with that which I now have. I had to press further for this. So since 2018, we have had this center managing the above mentioned category of persons, and it gives us no reason to think that any child should sit in the house. And with some other research that we did, because prior to the crisis, we did observe that most of the communities which are hardly hit, and most of these communities where the internally displaced are coming from, before the crisis, most of the kids around this area were not schooling. So with the crisis, it had to worsen the whole situation where, for example, if you came to a place like My 16, a good number of kids were on the streets and would not want to go to school. Some had decided to be dropped out. So with the crisis, most of these persons were quick to just join the wagon and get into the wagon, and they were moving. And some were moving based on what they were told. Some were not moving based on what they understand. So with others who are now coming in, given that most of the IDPs that we have in places like My 16, they are IDPs that are coming from communities that are pretty Algerian communities, because that is simply what they rely on to feed their families and to raise the little they raise to see how they can take care of their families. So with this category of persons, we said, since they have come in and they have no opportunity, what is very good is that we should set up this center to manage this category of person. So education, as we all know, like I said in my introduction, that person who teaches you how to pull that trigger, what he does is that he gets educated to pull the trigger. That is a form of education that he gets, to pull that trigger. He is taught. The moment you are taught to do something, you have been educated to do that particular thing. That person who tells you that the doors of a school should be shut down eventually was told something, and that was a form of education that took place. So all of these things, what we need to understand is that when you think that the kids should not go to school because we're into crisis, and when I look at Malala for the fact that she is a big lady today and she represents a whole lot today in the world and was shot in the head and did not relent, then I see no reason, because even in Ukraine, kids are going to school. Even when the Taliban took over and said they were going to close schools in their country, in Afghanistan, at a certain point the Taliban had to go back. They backtracked and they saw that there was no reason to cut off schools as per their program, which they had, because they had limitations of every other thing. And here we are today. The Taliban accepts that children should go to school. Even in Ukraine, if you go to the Donbass region where all of this is happening, the kids are in school, students are in schools. So I do not see any reason why we should at any point in time put education or to use it as a tool to send our voices across for things to be done. It is but obvious. I always cry, for example, when I boarded a car, I got to Douala this afternoon. Then I observed that some kids were coming back from school. And from where I am coming from, some are still sitting thinking that Monday is off their calendar and Tuesday is the beginning of a school day. Then I was already telling myself, we are living in a two different country. Though it is one, in the sense that some persons cannot even go to school. So it really hurts to see that in the midst of this crisis, the only thing that you can use to change that story, which you have, like I always tell the kids at the center, if you have the opportunity to sit in the class to learn, then be rest assured that the same knowledge that is being given to that child who is in Yaoundé, who is hoping to become the next president, you also have that same knowledge to become the next president.
Okay. Can we today, when you look at what is happening in the Southwest and Northwest, you have been there, the Northwest and Southwest, are there good reasons today to say, to justify why children should not go to school?
There is no reason. The only reason to justify why a child should not go to school when the child is sick. That's why you see every government subsidize education as compared to other services. And that's why you hear government are advocating for free education, of free schooling for all at the different levels, because they believe that this education is a basic necessity and a basic commodity that every nation must employ. It is only schooling that gives the opportunity for the rich and the poor to sit on the same table. It is only through education that the son of a poor man, a son of a farmer, can have the same experience like the son of someone of a minister. It is only that education that brings them on the same level. And whether we like it or not, we must understand that for the nation to move forward, for the nation to grow, we must encourage people to send their kids to school. As we witness the South African effect. And what is the South African effect? Remember that during apartheid, a lot of people or youth in South Africa were not going to school because they were advocating, and some joined the ANC military wing and so on, and they fought for far too long. And after the war in South Africa, what happened was that while the whites in their own community were sending their kids to school, the blacks, most of the blacks in other communities who had a few advantages to send their kids to school, instead joined the resistance movement of ANC. And after for far too long, they fought for a time, and apartheid was abolished with the release of Nelson Mandela, and something happened, and which we're experiencing today. A lot of those who dropped out did not get the formal education they ought to have, and that is why you see it is only in South Africa that a South African who did not go to school and fought for the war see a well-trained medical doctor from Nigeria or from Cameroon as a threat, as someone who has taken his job in South Africa. And you seem not to balance this correlation, that how is someone who is an accountant who went to school and can actually audit is a threat to you or has taken your job who you have never studied that. So you see, we risk being in this kind of situation, because look at we're 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. This is 6 years. Now look at the gap. That is, so if someone was in class 1, it means that that child should be writing common entrance and moving to Form 1 this year. So we have 6 years of gap. Now look at each of these years have their own generation. The first generation of students, second batches of students, third batch. So we have 6 wasted batches of students. Mean that there is a gap, and which you add these 6 years to the next, let's say to about 6 years, you have 12 years. So you have a 12 years deficit of people who probably will not be able to have jobs, not because they don't want to work, but because they are not qualified. For example, if a child was 5 years at the time this crisis started in 2016, you add 6 to 5, how many do we have? We have close to about 11 years. Now, assuming
a child who was in Form 1.
Who was in Form 1 6 years ago, and you add these 6 years now. So automatically, that child should be about 18 years or so, 18, 19 years or so. Now, let's take this clear example. What is the recruitment age of someone within the government? 18 years. Now, can that child have a job? Can that child actually have a job that child can work? No, because the child is not skillful. Now, you have taken from that case of Form 1, what of the one who was in Form 4? Now, you add that 6 years to the one who was in Form 4. It means that logically, totally, that child cannot work. And we are creating a system of deficit. So in the nearest future, you will see that we need to import more people to do a job where Cameroonians will see these people as threat of wanting to take their jobs. I want to use this Greek word. The Greek look at the 3 categories of persons. That there is the idiot, there is the citizen, and also there is we have the idiot, we have the citizen, and we have the tribe men. Now, what is happening in this northwest and southwest region is that we have these 3 categories of persons who are in the north and south when it comes to back to school. The idiot are those who don't care whether students go to school or not. They don't care, and they just support. They don't care. Why they don't care is because they think that since their kids are not affected, there's no problem. And let me assure them that there is an effect of these kids not going to school. If your kids are going to school, the ones that are not going to school, you see them and you say, no, Nadima Nipikine go school, that's a problem. These kids, there will be a point in time where the one that did not go to school, you see your kid that went to school as a threat to his or her own survivability, and that is where you see violence start coming in within the community. So to prevent future violence, to prevent future insecurity, to prevent people from seeing that they are socially being biased by others, we should create an opportunity for everybody to go to school. Now the tribe men are those who affiliate their opinion based on religion, cultural tendencies, or based on a certain kind of ideological line. For example, these are people who say they don't say me man no go school, and we remain like that. Why? These are the most dangerous set of people. And now we have the countrymen. These are people, the countrymen are those who see and understand that education remains an inalienable right of a child. Mr. Leo, when you get to the hospital for consultation, you don't care to know whether that doctor is from the northwest, from the southwest, from wherever. What you need to do is that you care to see if that doctor will treat you.
Okay. Doctor, they don't talk say me man no go school. 2016, 2022, them don't talk say me man no go school. What is the logic?
There would have been some logic if they talk say they are still hanging on that talk say. I remember there is a Barrister Agbobala who was one of those of the trade unions, who has come out public and said that was a mistake they made, and he has apologized on that, because they thought that was just going to be like something temporal, short term. It was going to be ephemeral. But that something has now gone perennial, and they are wondering. They didn't look ahead. They didn't see this coming. And if somebody keeps on talking about them don't talk say, the person should be able to say exactly who is that them. And is that them an invisible person that we are not seeing? Because that them, as I said in my opening discourse, there are those people who are sitting abroad who paradoxically are sponsoring their children in very big schools. and then telling us and telling those our innocent children back here that they shouldn't go to school. I think that if we go back memory lane, this crisis is even hinged on one of the aspects of our forefathers. And many people think that some of our forefathers made some of those mistakes because they were not really educated. I've heard people insult the Fonchas, the Munas, and they said they were just classroom teachers, and then they took decisions because they were not well educated. And then how comes that today we are preventing people from getting that education to be able to sit down and argue with other people on a table? I still come back again to talk about the fight of the GC board, the fight of the University of Buea. And the Anglophones were fighting because they thought we wanted to push forward our own sons and daughters to be educated and to be competitive, to live in this global world whereby there is this competition with knowledge and no more. Today, you see people fighting, using physical force to fight. You look at them as fools, of course, because now the fight now that we have in the world is a fight of intelligence, the fight of knowledge, the fight of what you can bring new to the world. And if today again I hear people say they don't talk 7 days don't go to school, then I begin to wonder, is it not contradictory to actually where out of the starting point of this crisis, where we were blaming it of ignorance? I think that we should say it and say it very clearly, because sometimes we are talking in this kind of language people don't understand, a coded language. We are saying that we do not want any kidnappings again of students going back to school, because sometimes maybe they don't even know that they are preventing children from going to school. Kidnapping is one of those issues. Accent on schools is one of those things. Deterrent. I mean, they are deterrent to children going back to school. We do not more want any Mother Teresa again today, tomorrow, and ever. We do not more want any 12 teachers of Kumbi being kidnapped, or of Kungi in Kamba, all of those places that are being disturbed from going back to school. I think those who stay in the bushes and say that they don't talk, say, let them be able to find out from their sources and know who are those who are saying those things, and make a close study of those who are saying those things. Because the people who are saying those things are people who are advancing, and they want to be able to get hold, ampute you who are sitting there and doing just nothing. And we think that at this particular point on time, children have stayed home for so long. And our fear is that when you stay home for so long, even the desire to go back to school will die. And we are thinking that 5 years, 6 years is a time too much for children to stay back at home. Because at one moment, there are consequences. A child who dropped out from school in class 3, after 6 years, if the child was 10 years old or 7 years old, you find yourself 15 years old. Going back to class 3 is that complex that is going to prevent that child from going back to sit in class. And during the early days, we felt bad that some of us were not able to go to school early enough, and that we went to school at our advanced age. And because we didn't have the opportunity, today the children have the opportunity to go to school. Please let these children go back to school. And I feel pity also for our girls. Girls are always the most touched, because once girls stay in the house, the girls who are in the house 1, 2, 3 years, what is the consequence? Early pregnancy and all of those things. They receive much of the consequences that we are talking about. And I think that that invisible, that drama that is in the bush, that is not showing its face, we do not want to dance that dance again. That dance of saying that school boycott or whatever you call it. I think that it is time that we, the Anglophones, should know that, like Rosa Parks will say, we have borne so much for so long a time. And it is a time that we rise up to our own education. It's time we rise up to our own reasoning and say that in America, Martin Luther King Jr. didn't stop people from going to school. Else, we wouldn't have had Barack Obama, the 44th president of the United States of America. In South Africa, the ANC didn't stop people from going to school. If not, we wouldn't have had Nelson Mandela as the president of South Africa. And therefore, we want to produce a president that is coming from the Anglophone region, and we think that that president should be of this generation. And if you stop these children from going to school, we will miss that opportunity of having a strong, someone who will be able to bring, new impetus into the life of Cameroonians. And therefore, that drama in the bush, whoever they are, we know the invisible faces, who are abroad. Please, you are living a Cajun life abroad. You are living an favorite life abroad, and you are preventing us from sending our children to school. Please, we are praying and we are begging that you pipe down. pipe down. You have held schools as a pawn for so long a time, and it has not yielded any fruit. Don't you think it is time for you to change your strategy and look at something else? I think it's a political fight. Change strategy and leave the children. Leave the children go to school because it is your right. Because tomorrow you are going to go in for this. Tomorrow you shall answer for this, either directly or indirectly. If you don't answer, your own children are going to answer for this. And we mean it, and we are saying it, and it is going to happen.
Okay, it's going to happen. Now, what are the justifications today? Reasons why persons were told not to send their children to school had to do with insecurity.
Yeah.
What is peculiar in Cameroon when we know that in South Africa, children were never stopped from going to school? We all lived what happened in Afghanistan, Iraq, and a host of others. What is peculiar with Cameroon? Do we love our children more than any other persons in the world?
Yes, we have the issues of insecurity, which in most cases, some persons would see it as not a reason enough to allow the kids to go to school. We know that education has several stakeholders, and we have the parent, we have the society, we have the institution where the child studies, and you have in the institution, you have the teachers, you have the management of the institutions, and the list will continue. I think the problem here is that the insecurity situation is the fact that some persons highlighted it that sometimes the child could be trapped in crossfire between the SAC guys, therefore the non-state armed groups, and the state forces, which we observed that which happened where baby Mata, the little girl in Boya was killed.
Caroline.
Yes, baby Caroline was killed, and one other child in Bamenda was equally killed, I think in Kumbi to be precise, who was also killed as a result of crossfire. These things, we cannot refuse that they are not happening. However, when education is concerned, these stakeholders have to ensure that education should not be tampered with. I just want the viewers to understand that Article 11 on the African Union, on the African Charter of the Right of the Child states that it is the right of the child to go to school. It goes further to say that the child shall have the right to education. This is to let you understand that when we talk about this, like Jarvis mentioned of it, it is the right of the child to go to school. It is not actually something that children should bargain for it. It is the reason why, as a human rights organization, as a human rights defender, particularly when I hear that there is a child in the house who is not going to school, and I understand that the parents are the cause of it, the first thing I do is that I make sure that I tell the parents exactly the consequences as per the law and the right of the child which they are violating.
Not a privilege, it's a right.
It's a right, it's not a privilege. I was speaking, some persons call me the education evangelist because a few days ago, we were out, the entire Rehabet team was out a few days ago. I think that should be about 4 days ago or so, where we had megaphones and speakers, and we were moving, and we told the communities that education is not a privilege, it is rather the right of the child, and it's an inalienable right, which for no reason you should think about alienating this right, because the child's right must not be alienated, because at the end of the day, what will happen is that you are creating a monster whom you will be unable to manage. So these are things that we have to understand. So we have several persons who are involved. Like one man said it a few days ago or so, that if we take away politics in education and avoid education from getting mixed up into politics, then we can move on. Education under normal circumstances has nothing to do with politics. And we should not we should stop the politicking with the children's education, because what happens at the end of the day, it is not good. And it also goes further to say that the situation of the child shall be directed to, you have several things. The whole point of this is that that same child can be competitive enough with the other children across the board. So we have the issues of insecurity. We cannot refuse that. I think I said it yesterday on a program here on the same media outlets that, yes, in as much as we have issues of insecurity, which I know that, for example, if you look at places like My 16, if you look at places like Muyuka, you look at places like Ekuna, or if you look at Muyuka subdivision in particular, we cannot say that schools had reopening in some particular areas within this particular subdivision, in the sense that we understand that it's predominantly an area of the proponents of no school, and we cannot sit back to observe that. I am not saying that we do not have a problem. There is the Anglophone problem. There is a problem in this country. We have a problem of governance, no doubt. However, we should not take the issues of governance and continue keeping the children in obscurity, because that is going to be very difficult to solve that problem. One thing is very clear. We know for sure that those who supported the idea of no school, because we thought it was going to be a good tool, like Dr. Ndimancho said earlier, yes, some of these persons, they have come out openly and they have confessed and they have made the world to understand that, yes, this was said, which was something they never envisaged to happen the way it is. And they have said, okay, the kids should go back to school. So whosoever takes the issue of insecurity, and I want the viewers to understand that we are a member, Cameroon is a signatory to the Safe School Declaration. And the Safe School Declaration is all about what? Our schools and universities should not be used as military barracks and should not be used as hideout for non-state armed groups. So under normal circumstances, and according to this declaration, we should bear in mind that these are not places for us to think about carrying our fight to. So if we see the situation of insecurity, for example, war times, times of trouble, there are particular places that we have to protect. We have to protect the churches, we have to protect the mosque, we have to protect, there are a particular group of people who are known as the vulnerable within this period. We have the women and girls, and we have the elderly, and we have the children. So if we take into consideration these persons, all the stakeholders of this crisis, all those who are involved in this crisis, I think it is time for them to understand that within this particular period, we do not want these things as they have to be. So for example, I would not appreciate that if we should sit when we have to take our schools to be a learning place and we see the military there as they are their ones, it's going to deter some people. Likewise, we will not appreciate that the non-state armed groups take some of our schools, like we have it in some parts within the Northwest and Southwest, as their hideout. That is where some of the lodge, that is where they carry out their activities. And most of these schools cannot go functional.
Is this time to keep schools, the children, out of politics? Because we are talking about justification. These children are going to church.
Yeah.
These children go to markets. These children go to farms.
They are on the streets playing.
Now, are we saying that bullets only identify children when they're in school? Can we put children out of schools, out of politics?
I almost asked myself the same question that was yesterday during the program, House of Commons, because I asked myself that, has the bullet now become a litmus paper where it identifies school and changes its colors?
Yes.
And when it comes to the quarters, it changes its colors, or to the market? When you go to Moya market, you see it is full to its capacity. The children are there hawking and walking, cocoa here, this there, this there. You go to my 17, it is totally full with hot cocoa, this, that, from the time of the holiday till whenever, and even at midnight.
Yeah.
Even midnight in my 17, we are talking about my 17.
When it's school time, we
when
talk
it's
about
school time.
insecurity.
Now, when it's school time, now we start talking about your father. No, there is insecurity. No, our children may be kidnapped, but these kids are not kidnapped when they are going to church. They are not kidnapped when they are going to school. And also, some people are using it, both sides are using it as a leverage for warnomics, to generate resources and to generate economy. How do you explain the fact that, Mr. Liu, we have churches in Moya, but our sonists, unidentified men, will leave those churches and go and burn down a school of Jibete Moya, which those same people have benefited from that school. Now, I ask myself this question and ask, now you have burned down the school, what gain have you secured? What has been the impact for the struggle? Have you deterred or make more enemies? This is what the belligerent fail to understand, that there's what we call civil and military cooperation. What makes an army or whoever to win a conflict is when the people are on your side, when you give the people the confidence that they're on your side. The Geneva Convention make it clear that educational environment churches, hospitals are no-go areas for military and combat activity, either by the state army or by rebels in a particular area. That is why during intensive fighting, you see refugee centers, schools are used as refugee centers, and they are used as refugee centers, and education continue in those centers such that those people continue in their learning process. You will never see a refugee center where education is not even taught there, not in where schools is not operational. Never. Count all the refugee centers you ever know controlled by the United Nations or whatever mission on earth. You will see that once the children or the population is grouped into one area, there is what we call the educational arm, the health arm. Those are the two most important arms. And how do you explain the fact that someone goes to the field to play, like in Moya? I will use Moya as a good example. During the holiday, the inter-quarter competition, like even in Way Village of recent, the inter-quarter competition was, you saw how the whole field was full to capacity in Way Village. They were playing the finals or in the peace tournament. But now, when you mention the word school, you start hearing people will tell you that we don't have this, we don't have this. It's because both the belligerents have decided to bring in politics. I want to beg from our elite to understand that they should not use school as a leverage. They should not use school to score their political gains. They should allow education to go the way it should go. Remember, Mr. Leo, education or schools are apolitical and non-partisan. That is why a teacher who is teaching in school don't care to find out from a parent whether the parent who is bringing the kid in that school is a CPDM or is an SDF or is an MRC or is whatever. What they are teaching in that class, if it's biology, is biology. If it's chemistry, it's chemistry. If it is history, it's history. You will not hear they will start talking about the political fighting that's occurring except on those professional courses that entail history. But what unite, I keep saying this, what unite the son of a poor man and that of a rich man is schooling. For example, during the GC period, when you look at the names of successful candidates in order of merit, do you care to find out whether this one came from verb maker, this one came from this one came from that? Because all of them write the same exam. All of them are on the same wavelength. And that is the only opportunity for them to be on the same table. If today Kenyans are proud that they have a new president that has broken the ranks of dynasty, it is because Williams Ruto grew up from the ghetto, went to school, studied and had a PhD from an exceller who decided to go to school, had his PhD, challenged Raila Odinga, who's the son of an early, the first prime minister, and challenged Raila Odinga, backed by William Ruto, by Uhuru Kenyatta, and still won them. That's to tell you the power of education. I want to tell my brothers and sisters that those of you who are watching us online, you may not like what we are saying here, but the truth is, if you have a child, where is that child? You are online writing, where is that child? Some of you, a good number of you, your children are in Douala. Your children are in Yaoundé. Your children are in Bafoussam. They are studying peacefully. But you are on Facebook and you're on other platforms telling others, don't send your children to school. It is not safe. It is not this. We are not disputing the fact that there is no problem in the Northwest and Southwest. It's genuine. But the issue is, let the children go to school. Mr. Kuma asks this, who will replace you in the next 30 years or 50 years when our strengths are weak? You will see a situation where an educated person who has been trained as a journalist, our children will fight that person and that person has taken his job. You will see it. You will see where our children will fight these doctors. We will fight them, that the teacher that they have taken their job. Put that person in class, you will not be able to teach. Put that person in the hospital, you will not be able to conduct it. So they are taking their job. And that's why you start seeing protests, violence, and do we want this kind of system? Okay.
Good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and the crew in the studio. I like your topic of today. We all know that there are two camps that do not want the children to go to school in the Northwest and Southwest. We have the government officials on one side and the separatists on the other side. If the government of Cameroon really wants all children to go to school, I think they should start by sanctioning SDOs and the DOs who ban private schools from functioning. What's then the difference between the separatists and the DOs? Christopher is writing from Bamenda. Yes, Christopher, please. Schools have always been there now, because DOs have never refused children from going to school. Good evening, Mr. Kum. and the panelists, I really appreciate your contributions in denouncing the school boycott. You can't win a war without education. You can't develop without education. In fact, education is a necessity, and we need spare our efforts in denouncing school boycott. Thirdly, we should equally denounce the banning of schools by overzealous administrators. They are part of people denying the children to go to school. Some of these are formed just like Mr. Lucas is saying in the studio, to some solve or save these children from missing their education. Felix is writing from Bamenda, okay? Good evening to you, Mr. Felix. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Education can't wait, and those who are using boycott as a means to fight for independence are simply wicked and thoughtless. Such a policy is one of the worst things that has happened and shall happen in human history. Christopher is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Most government schools function because of the presence of the military, and many schools don't function because of the presence of the voices. Okay? Yes, who are the voices? Can you just name them? Hello to the My Media Prime panel. I'm Elvis from Bamenda. I'm taking keen interest in your debate topic and wish to contribute by speaking the mindset of the extremists. Look at it from the perspective, if school's curriculum is intended learning opportunities aimed at causing the learners to behave in a particular way, then how normal would it be for you to allow your children to be taught by your enemy? With what curriculum? This is the mindset of extremists. So, good evening. Yes, but is that not where the problem is? Who is the enemy here and who is the friend here?
This is something...
Because when you send your children to the UK has their curriculum. You send your children to America, they have their curriculum. We have children who live here to go to a study in China. Are they teaching you in your curriculum?
Are you even talking about the enemy and even looking abroad? We have, in Cameroon, we have about 257 local languages. And sometimes people integrate, you know, you live here and go to the next village and they speak the language you don't even understand. And do you call that an enemy? That is what I'm asking myself. So I don't know what people really mean by enemies, that sometime at one moment we live together for so long a time and suddenly the people you live with have suddenly become your enemies. And I don't know where the bone of contention has come from, that you suddenly call the person you live with an enemy. I think that this is true extremist kind of a point of view that I would not like to. I'm at the center of an office where you find a lot of children going abroad, going to universities. And when you look at the number of Cameroonians who are applying to go to foreign universities, you are asking yourself, would the whole Cameroon not get out of this place? So are they going to meet their friends? This is a question sometimes we ask. Are you sending your children to go meet your friends abroad? You find some kids who are even wishing to go as young as 15 years, and their parents are leaving them to go abroad. I mean, at that tender age, you know, and then you're asking yourself, how are they going to cope in a new environment? How are they going to acclimatize the new environment, new people, new language, new culture, and everything? And there, you do not call that a strange place, or you are not an enemy or whatsoever. So you think that a child who is going to the UK or to America, that the UK is more friendly than your next door, perhaps the East Cameroon, as we will call it now. I just think that it is an issue of the mentality, you know. Sometimes when you tend to have a negative intention or thought about something, you just want to paint it black. Like usually they say, you give a dog a bad name in order to hang it. And exactly this is what most of us are doing. And do you think that enemy you are talking about, you will satisfy yourself by burning down 4,000 schools? According to the statistics of UNICEF, UNICEF, you burned down 4,000 schools. Are those schools that are burnt, are they burnt in the territory of your enemy? Those schools are burnt around you. So are you shooting yourself on the foot, or you are thinking that those schools are your very enemies? I think that we have to bring reasoning into this thing, that there is a lot of education that we need to bring to the people. Because you just sit, I remember in the 1990s when there was this kind of a crisis in France, you found there were young people rioting, students rioting, and it was a kind of a chaos. And I love this journalist of the RFE who just came. I mean, as they were rioting, he made a young guy, and then he said, "Young man, I see you people are rioting. You are not satisfied. You are not happy about what is happening. Please, can you just tell us what is happening?" The guy said, I mean, he tried to explain, and then the journalist asked him a very, very pertinent question. He said, "Young man, what level of education do you have?" I imagine that guy hit the microphone and he fell down because he didn't have any level of education. And he didn't know exactly what he was writing, meaning that even they even offered him the job that he was writing for, he wasn't qualified to have the job. I want to say that this is a very thing that is happening to, will happen to our Anglophone brothers. And it's a very thing, as Tah Jarvis said, happening to South Africa is xenophobia. Let me tell you, it is because, and as I usually say, South Africans, they had a political independence, but didn't have economic independence. And that is what is happening now. And that is what they want our brothers Anglophones to have. That we should have a political independence and zero economy. That is
the knowledgeable.
That is it. Depending on the few people who live from over there, who of course, I told the knowledgeable will come and go into the mining sector and whatsoever to those menial jobs where the young people of the have-nots they do. They will not come to go there. Therefore, we will have that perpetual problem of economic crisis. So I think this is what is happening. Now you now see this is where the real enemy is coming from. Look at now concours are organized in Cameroon. We do not want to go to school. Now we find
for 6 years.
Yeah, for 6 years. You find Francophones who are studying English now.
For 6 years,
yes.
They have been having access
to these schools.
And they'll be deployed.
And they'll be deployed. We'll keep on complaining and complaining because the result come. And then even Francophones who have gone to done English section, we want Anglophones to have those jobs. Francophones are going to have all those jobs because they are qualified. They have gone to English schools and they have trained in the English in their language and they can perform well. So we will keep on complaining every day. Pobia has done this one has done this one has done. The world of today is a world of complaining and doing. You are complaining and you are able to bring out what is new in your complaint. I ran a kind of a discussion with some people the other time and said, I would really love to see some of those Anglophones who have distinguished themselves during this crisis. That in the midst of this crisis, they have done something that has even changed the lives of other people. I thank God that Mr. Nji is here and he's doing a lot. Yes, that's it. That's right. Without taking your question, please take your question.
That's the question I have for him. What have we benefited 6 years without going to school? Our children are out of the school. At least it was to pass a message to prove ourselves. When you want to challenge Tah Jarvis, at least you want to make him understand that even without him, you are better off. But let me take a few messages and then you come in. Good evening to you all. Good evening to you all in the studio. Mr. Leonard, I'll tell you categorically that people going to school in this crisis hit zone are at serious risk. To be honest, the non-state armed actors believe that if schools resume normally, it means everything is under control of the government. They are fighting for complete restoration and cannot accept that schools will sing the national anthem and the host flag as well. While on the other hand, the government is bent at the order all schools must obey their rules. Okay, but the gendarmes, they are raising flags now. The chief and the rest, they are raising flags, so I don't know. Mr. Leo, good evening to you and your panelists. Let your media cry to the administrators banning all private and mission schools in some divisions in Northwest and Southwest, insisting that children go only to government schools to stop it. By doing this, such are forcing parents to send children to schools out of the Northwest and the Southwest. Donald is writing from Northwest and Southwest. Yes, but good evening in the house, sir. The UK is better than this colonial master Cameroon. If government soldiers who are supposed to protect the children are the same harassing them and killing them, better we suffer in UK than in this wicked Cameroon. How many university graduates are in Bamenda without work? Every concours are under bribe. Okay, yes, let's see how this works. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the panelists in the studio. Thanks for building the nation in your own way. May God touch everyone who sees while young. One should not go to school to change from that aspect and bless them with ever reason they thought school could be the target. Muma is writing from Bamenda. Muma, your message is not too clear. Hi, Mr. Liu, missing your program. It's like missing to take my drugs. Those who are saying about school boycott, let Papa God forgive them, because you are building the worst government in future. Is Do Roland writing from Bali. More grace to you, able. Thank you very much, Do. Good evening, Mr. Lu. This is Mafri writing from Kumba. This is whole issue of school boycott in the Northwest and Southwest is coming from those who call themselves fighters who had never gone to school or dropped out from school and not happy seeing others schooling. Secondly, those in the diaspora want their educated children come back home and dominate us by insisting on children. This way, stay at home. It's really an issue of the mentality, okay? At times, Lucas, I don't know, when I give the statistics of what people write from ground zero, it appears as if they are made up. At least you are reading them.
Yes.
People think that there is a problem. Those who are in Bamenda and yes.
You see, Mr. Leo, let me tell you something.
Because at times, I know if I go on Facebook today and I read, it's going to be completely a big contrast
yes.
from what the people who are on ground
and
are
even
writing.
the SMS.
Yes.
Now, as a human rights defender, I am against anybody who dares the right of another person. That is very clear. The government of Cameroon has got lots of flaws. Howbeit, education is something that I will not blink eye on it. Now, this is it. So far within these years, those who are losing are not the persons carrying the arms. Those who are losing are the kids who have not been to school. My little boy heading to Form 3 lives in an area where there are guys of about 17 years plus who are not even moving into the same class with him. And he is just a little boy of 13. And there are persons who feel like he is somehow more than them in terms of that, and some see it to be an issue. Why? The determination by the young man to deny illiteracy is becoming a problem. When the crisis started, I did not blink eye. I said to myself that with the parental gap that I had, there was no reason to have undergone this and to permit another generation to go through. And this is the same thing that happens with the guys abroad. It's the same thing that happens with
let me cue you.
Yes.
Let me cue you. When this crisis started, sincerely speaking, I had, I call her my daughter. She was living in Boya, and she was in Form 5.
Yeah.
Children were asked not to go to school. She went to school. She had her O-level that same year. She had she went to lower C. She had her
advanced level 3 years, 2 years later.
She's in the university. Yeah. This year she just had her HND.
Good.
That's 5 years after.
Good.
And imagine those who refuse not to go to school, where
they are still at the level of ordinary level.
When schools were asked not to go to school, that's when my wife started the Masters in Public Health. She had the Masters in Public Health 2 years after. She is furthering her education somewhere now. Imagine those who refuse not to go to school. Yeah. That is my personal testimony.
Just as I'm saying, you understand. So you realize at the end of the day that it is affecting nobody. I know exactly. See, let me tell you this. The tool which was used from the beginning was, the plan was to bring the other stakeholder to order, which did not actually work. Reasons why the initiator of this plan did not actually see themselves as failures, rather apologized that that tool did not work, and they understand that what do we need to do. And to tell you guys the truth, we have the Anglophone problem in Cameroon. We are not refusing that. Now, there are people who have decided, like one writer says, that it is a tool being used by the guys to keep on projecting themselves that there is a problem. Whether we allow education or not, there is a problem. In the 60s, when this problem started with the Benafolons and the rest, the problem was there. Nobody refused that. In the 90s, it was there. When our brothers, some had to die in Yaoundé 1, where we were able to have been given the University of Boya to ensure that this does not continue, was as a result of the fact that the Anglophone problem is there. Nobody is refusing that.
The GC board.
The GC board was given. Nobody is refusing that. We have all of this on the ground. They are there. Nobody is refusing that. But what we are saying is that there is no way in the course of a chaos or of a war you allow a child to sit in the house. Because the other child who goes to school eventually becomes his boss. And what will happen is that you will see children who are age mate of your own children, and they are bossing your child because your child did not go to school. How would you feel? That's a question. How would you feel? It makes it very obvious that there was no reason for you to allow that child in the house. I am not refusing. We have a problem in this country. We have a problem of mismanagement of the natural resources. We have a problem of the mismanagement of the people, which is there on the ground. We are not refusing that. But what I am saying is that for no reason should you keep a child at home. In the sense that at the end of the day, that child will be the one not to compete with the other child. Yes, I know that the SAC guys or the non-state armed groups, they are using this as a tool to communicate that their voices should be heard. But let me tell you the truth. I said this on this platform some months ago, and some people thought I was kidding. The United Nations that we keep calling, hoping that they will come someday to give that independence. Let me be factual with you. I am not a prophet of doom. The system of the United Nations does not support the denial of children to go to school. The moment you put on that, they take themselves away from you. And you are fighting thinking that you want to have their sympathy. They will not sympathize with you until you allow kids to go to school and put forth your own problems. Then they'll have listening ears.
No,
I know for sure that
within
the context of this crisis, we also have the overzealous military guys who think that it is another opportunity. I boarded a taxi once in Boya on a certain school day. Then I observed that along that particular path, many students stood on the roads to go to school because the military stopped at a certain point. They were hoping to have their usual control, which most of these control points per se are illegal because the divisional officer for Boya subdivision had made known to the people control posts which are accepted by the state. And some of these guys, what they do is that they cause a lot of children not to go to school on time. These are some of the things that we also have to say them, that they should know exactly what they are doing. As we are talking about children going to school, I want to call on all the stakeholders because the government is a stakeholder. Yes.
I remember some guys, some military guys who were stationed around my 14.
Yeah.
They took money from my friend, 450,000 francs.
Yeah.
But the day before they took that money, they had taken almost 800,000 francs from his friend.
Yeah.
And thank God, the friend knew the collision.
Could you imagine?
In
along the Malingo Road?
No, collision.
Okay. At the opposite the school.
No, collision in around
opposite the council. Yes.
Around the council. Okay, yes.
So the friend called the collision and informed him of what the guys were doing around there. And then the collision asked that they should call the guys. The guy refunded the money, and then he said that they took 450,000 francs from his friend, and the friend was caught up, and the collision asked them to refund that money. That is when those guys were dismantled from that area. To say that when you report certain things,
they take action.
Yes,
they take action. So these are things. Just like when I boarded the car coming this afternoon, I observed that just immediately after Miselele, around that area, there was a certain armored car that stood there and they were stopping cars. Then I told the driver, this is an illegal control. They are not authorized. And such control points, we denounce them. We understand control points. So when it comes to education, why we are there telling children to go to school, we want a situation also whereby, because one of the writers there was talking about what the military also does, we should facilitate this, because the purpose for this is that children should go to school. It doesn't make sense that children will queue up on the street, on the road in my 16 for many hours waiting for the taxi that will come to pick them up to school, and taxi drivers are not coming that way.
Because of
control point. And this control point do not control documents. They collect the 500 francs from the drivers.
Collect money.
Yes. So we should also manage that, because we want children to go to school, and we should ensure that they should go to school and go to school on time. So we cannot allow children, if you keep a child in the house thinking that it is going to benefit that child,
okay,
let me tell you, that child will become the new monster in your house. And when that time comes, you will not be able to contain that child.
Good evening at the studio. My name is St. Luton watching from Yaoundé. Please, I have been asking this question over and over, that why those who are saying schools should be boycotted in Northwest and Southwest not sending back their children and relatives who are in abroad to come and stay back there in the Northwest and Southwest and not go to school. They know the game they're playing in order to make their relatives and children over the non-educated. Anybody that is saying such a thing, that schools should be boycotted, are the real enemies of this crisis we are facing in our country. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Now that the government is banning all community schools in Northwest and Southwest here in Moyuka, that there is no government school, does that mean all those going to transfer their children to Tico? Limbe Roger writing from Moyuka. Limbe, Roger, if community schools are permitted by the non-state armed groups, so it means that there is no issue of insecurity now, because how would they attend community schools? Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Enjoying your programs always. No one has stopped another from going to school. Of course, it is true that when the crisis started, there was these restrictions on schools, but the following year it was cancelled and only meted on government schools. Now the decision lies on the hands of the parents. It is either you send your child to private schools or, okay. Elvis, writing from Mile 11 in Bafut. That is exactly the problem. Why not government schools? If because the argument has been that there's insecurity. Now, you would think that children should go to private schools and not government schools. What is guaranteeing the security in private schools and not government schools?
I would not guarantee the other.
That is, are you not betraying yourself?
There is bad faith. People are just clamoring on the issue of insecurity. Yeah, we are not refusing that there's no insecurity, but they are exaggerating it for political gains. And I ask myself this simple question: let's say we have been fighting for 6 years. Let's add additional 10 years. That would be 16 years.
Yeah.
Let's just say within that 16 years, the UN comes down and say, okay, have your independence.
Yeah.
Now, the child who was 10 years at the time that the conflict started
had not gone to school.
You add that 10 to that 16,
20.
It's 26 years.
Yeah, 26 years.
So that child is 26 years.
Yeah.
Now, for 26 years, who will run your economy within the time you have independence? Who will run your hospital?
The children of those abroad.
Those abroad, they will come
within so you will be deficient. So you will suffer from high level insecurity. High level. Because imagine that you have, let's say you have your independence, because Colombia, the FARC fought for 20 years, but it did not stop people from going to school.
Up to date, they are still fighting.
They did not stop people from going to school. Assuming that people you hear, they will tell you that we will fight the last man standing. Assuming that the last man standing fight goes for 20 years, you add plus these 6 years that we have gone, 26 years. And that 26 years, they say, okay, you should have your independence. Now, who runs the economy? Who runs the hospital?
Foreigners.
Who runs this? Who runs that? Who runs that? Another issue is the issue of concours. We keep clamoring and claiming that, yeah, and we are marginalized, which is true, we are marginalized. We are marginalized because we are not given equal opportunity in terms of recruitment. Now we have been for 6 years without going to school. And within that 6 years, they have launched concours for that 6 years period. Now, assuming that in the next 7 years, they will launch concours for 7 years to come. So you have a 13 years deficit for Anglophones not to enter the concours because of 7 years or 6 years they have not studied, so they cannot have the opportunity
at least they have passed a message, but they don't have the
they don't have the opportunity. Yes. They don't have. So at the end of the day, who are you deceiving? It's another question. Come now to this context, say, okay,
those who have missed. Their children are going to school in Douala.
No, I want to. I'm coming there.
Go for those concours.
I'm coming to now. Okay, let's say you say there's insecurity. People should not go to school. Are you by chance saying that we should remove all the kids from the north and southwest region and send now to the rest of the region? Okay, if we remove the kids from the north and southwest region and send to the rest of the region, what point are we gaining? Now you claim that if schools are going on, the UN will see that things are normal. But I want to ask a question: which will the UN see first as things being normal? Is it the markets that are full to capacity? Is it the churches that the UN see that people are dancing every day? Which will the UN see that things are normal? Is it the bars that we go and drink every day? Which will the UN see as
because
things
all of
are
these
normal?
Are virtually full.
Which will yes.
Children go go to bars,
bars,
go to
nightclubs, they sell on the street.
They go to churches.
They go to churches, they go to the field to play football. Which with the UN see as being more normal? Is it the school or which of them? So it's a total cacophony.
That children can do
anything. So the UN will not see that things are normal. Is it the divisional officers who have the green, red, yellow flag? They sing the national anthem. Is it not that as compared to school, which with the UN see are things being normal? It is a farce. We are just deceiving ourselves.
Okay. While we were discussing, we have this one from the Longla Comprehensive College, end of Tah Longla in Mankon. They are admitting 2022-2023 school admission. They are currently going on out there in end of Tah Longla. End of Tah Longla is a rendezvous. I remember that while I was studying in GBHS Mankon, at the time it was GSS Mankon, GBSS Mankon, we would leave on Tamulung, or stroll from Tamulung through Rendezvous to Ngomgam, and then get to Mankon through Longla. It was the pride of Bamenda. We just hope that people recognize what Pa Longla, of blessed memory, may his soul rest in peace,
did, which of course he's still doing.
So they have the grammar, commercial and technical section. Why choose Longla track record of excellence? Yes, I remember that while I was in Form 1, Longla, it was a household name in the Northwest region. Well-equipped library, up-to-date complete lab, excellent teachers, day and boarding facilities at Longla. They are located around Rendezvous, just before End of Tah. If you know where End of Tah is, Longla is found on the left. So we are going to continue. We're talking about this, that the essence of this, asking children not to go to school. Dr. Micheal Ndimancho, maybe UNESCO is going to cancel the school year. The United Nations is going to see how serious this is. Mr. Kum, we are in Boya, and I can tell you as an eyewitness that 12 years old children are in class 1. There is no greater wickedness than refusing children from attending schools.
I received a child in rehab
Excuse me, let me take 5 messages and then we continue. These Amber boys and their leaders abroad know that if you permit schools to go on, their struggle dies a natural death. They will not have persons to recruit in their militias. If we don't stand against their no school policy, then we will become South Africa in few years. Others will come and get our jobs while we will be employable because of our illiteracy. Amber leaders want the local population to remain uneducated so that they will come after independence and rule us. Okay. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Leonard and your panelists. It's pathetic to think that until now we are still talking about going back to school. The parents in the Northwest, Southwest have enough evidence over time from killing of children and brutality as to why they shouldn't send their children to school. These parents are not ignorant of the fact that education is a child's right, but the Cameroon we are thinking about who guarantees our children's safety while in school. Okay.
In the quarters, who is guaranteeing their safety?
Jerry is writing from Bafia in Yaoundé. So I don't know who is guaranteeing the security of the children when they go to church.
My 17 boys
to sell in all of these places and all these places. Hello, sir, is taken from Limbe. I like your program Back to School. The government was supposed to send books and bags to villages. Okay. Yes. We pray the government does that so that our children to go back to school. Good evening, Mr. Leo. This is Charles from Limbe. Do you know that the police at checkpoint mile 4 are always causing traffic and go slow, thereby making children late for school due to their stopping of cars and collection of money? I just want to know the use of Konak in this country. If the military men are on our highways with pen and paper robbing Cameroonians on daily basis. I even talked to one of the officers who told me that the governor is demanding, daily from control checkpoints. No, no, I'm not sure the governor can ask you money from checkpoints. Stop deceiving Cameroonians. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Simon Iba, writing from Bafut. This school issue is economical. Proponents of no school want our children to cross over and give them money in the littoral and west regions. No one is forbidding schools here, but the DOs who have banned community schools, school is school. Children attending community schools have also passed first school living certificates. That is the bone of contention. Why do people want children to go to community schools and not government schools and claim there's insecurity? Good evening, Mr. Liu. I want to ask, are the community schools following the same curriculum as the government demands? If yes, why is the government bothering herself? At this point, even if the children are taught by who, so long as they are taught the right thing, then no problem. Greetings to all the wonderful panelists. Ewane Emmanuel, writing from Muya. Sorry, I've been so busy. I promised to call you yesterday. I failed to, but believe me, I'll call you tomorrow. Mr. Liu, I love your program. Those in the diaspora can't have the privilege to rule abroad, so better create a state of bushmen which they can easily rule. We need more educated men and no school boycott. Tamba Tano, writing from Mamfe. Good evening to you. Keep on the great work we are watching from Biaka University. Good evening to you, Biaka University. Thank you for always supporting the work we do out here. Greetings, Mr. Liu. If we are not careful, this same fight will be fought in future. Reason being that the children of those rich people studying abroad will one day want to come and rule when things get okay, as they believe. Those not going to school will refuse, saying that we were the ones dying and fighting for this, and you people were abroad enjoying. A child that was not going to school can never be a governor, teacher, or journalist. Those abroad will want to occupy those positions. Another fight will start again. Manga Collins, writing there. Good evening to you in the studio. Very interesting debate there. Preventing children from going to school is the highest evil against humanity. Koge Lewis, Enang, writing from Yaoundé. Yes, but do we know that struggling to solve a problem today by not sending children to school tomorrow is also brewing a war for tomorrow?
Of course. I think that we are rather preparing for another war, which is going to be disastrous. And we have an example of that in South Sudan. You know what is going on in South Sudan now? Because I cannot, South Sudanese cannot pretend to say that they are at peace this time better than they were when they were with the Republic of Sudan. I think ours would be very, very much fierce and much more disastrous on us all. And this is proof. I mean, we are seeing signs of this coming because it appears as if there is an American classic, a novel, titled Gone with the Wind. And I think that we are following the footsteps of people who are rather chasing the wind, you know. We have the Anglophones have observed some kind of 4 public holidays in Cameroon that I'm still asking myself what significance those public holidays were for. The first public holiday was in October 2017 when Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, came to Cameroon. I was actually in Bamenda on that very day with the empty streets. And when I asked, they told me it's because Guterres was in Yaoundé. And I asked myself, of what use was a public holiday or a ghost town in Bamenda or in Buea or wheresoever when Guterres was in Yaoundé? The second one was when Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, came to Cameroon the same year, 2017. And there was complete ghost town in Northwest and Southwest because for them, the Commonwealth was coming under the banner of the British to come back and reverse the decisions of whatsoever of the 1961 or the Federation and whatsoever. And the third one was with the coming of Louis Mushikiwabo, the Secretary General of the Francophonie in 2019. The streets were all empty in the Northwest and Southwest. And when I asked, they told me Louis was in Yaoundé and she came to negotiate how we're going to have separation.
God of
And the fourth one is
Musa
the
Faki.
no, Musa Faki. There was no problem because they thought Musa
He
Faki
has decided already.
is an African, and they saw Musa from Chad here. I observed that very well. Musa Faki, there was no problem with it. But interestingly, the fourth one is that of Macron, who came recently in Cameroon. And there was total public holiday in the Northwest and Southwest region. And still, when I asked, they said Macron has come and he has realized his fault and he's coming to arrange things for the Northwest to go their separate ways. So now you understand the kind of situation in which we find ourselves. Is this not a high level of insanity? That things are happening, young people are coming for their deals.
Just to add, also that UN will cancel the school year in 2017, 2018, and 2019. All those YGC will be cancelled.
There's this kind of a cooked up thing that they said if schools don't go up for a certain period of time, there's going to be a black, a white, or black, or yellow.
In that 2017, just to queue up, 2017, I called some students who were students of the University of Boya at the time, and a student told me on the phone that you are calling me because you want to make money from me. Because she assumed that having a business that deals with printing and the rest, my focus was that when they come, because they observed that relatively the campus was deserted. However, students who went to school that year, some of them right now are having opportunities. I know of students who won the Chevening scholarship a few days ago, who were part of that same batch. And today, as we speak, they are moving to Britain to study. You understand?
That is what we are talking about.
They are moving to Britain to study on the free scholarship.
I think that this is even the time, because we are here to open the minds of some of those young people who have already been cooked up and they don't know what. We want to open their mind. This is the time of opportunities. And that you can have the opportunities to change your life and change the lives of your families now. Because now the world is open for everybody.
An ever competitive world.
And this is a competitive world. And the world today is what you know. Forget about who you know. We have even talked about this issue of being marginalized because of concours. This issue is not an issue of Anglophones alone. This issue is an issue of the whole Cameroon, whereby we understand the fact and I accept the fact that this issue of concours is being actually tailored by a few individuals of a particular tribe. It's not an issue of Cameroon. The West region is crying. The Northerners are crying. Other people are crying, not just the issue of Anglophones. So let us not carry it on our pedestals and go around and think that it is not just the Anglophones that are being marginalized as far as recruitment or as far as concours and whatsoever is concerned. I think that we have been proving it tough, and I've always said there are some heavyweights in this Cameroon, even parliamentarians who have visited the Northwest and Southwest and come back and told a very, very great story about the Northwest and Southwest. And that is why our schools remains that kind of industry. The industry of learning.
That's the question. That's the question I was going to ask.
That's right.
Yes, because one of the biggest industries Anglophones could boast of.
It's a school.
Was this?
Yes.
The education industry. Yes. We had the success, we had the this and that and that. What have we benefited?
We have the Sacred Hearts,
St.
Beats in
Ashikom
and the rest. Yes, we did produce, just to name this, we did produce a category of persons that across the Mongo were seen as persons with the industry.
If we had more than 25-50 schools where Francophones send their children to, were we not assimilating them through this process?
Yes,
for 20 years, you have more than 10,000 Francophones studying in this place.
Which, of course, if you were to look at it in a wider sense, there was a part of enculturation that took place, which assimilation equally ensued after that. Howbeit, what was very obvious was the fact that our education in the Northwest and Southwest region was a thing that we could boast of at all times. We produced the best. In GCE result, we produced the best. And if you look at those who know how, it is alleged, I'm yet to get the fact, it is alleged that the SIM card that we are talking about today was produced by a Cameroonian, and he is an Anglophone, so to say, somebody from the Northwest part or the Southwest part of the country, not just by language. So you will see that this is to tell you how far we could produce persons who can reason and who can reason very fast. I think the worry here is that with all of these things, some persons still think that something is going to fall in the call for no school resumption. Like I have said, we have several stakeholders. All of these persons do matter. The right to education is something we should not play with, in the sense that the person who gets this education comes back to solve his or her own problem, does not solve your problem. Some of us had the privilege to have had what we have, and today we are solving problems that involves others who are not capable and who never saw any opportunity. Somebody invoked the issue of the community schools and the role they play. I know for sure that at the beginning of this crisis, in some areas, some people had that phobia for a block called the government schools. It was simply a phobia where some people took it as an advantage to ensure that these places do not function. I sat the other day, Mr. Liu, and I was thinking that if you look at, let me take the case of the government school in my 16. When that school was given on the piece of paper, the community sat and decided through the PTA to put up certain blocks. I am a member of some associations on the ground, and we were called a few months ago for a meeting that we want to fence the place. Who is building that school? It is the people. When you destroy it, what are you destroying? The people's money. Because that money is not coming from Yaoundé. It is never in any budget. I cannot recall the last time it was in the budget of the Ministry of Secondary Education that they want to go and build a school in my 16. It was never there. So the people did put up that school, for example. And so if we should destroy it, what are we destroying? Our own school. If we decide to set it ablaze, what are we raising up? It's our own school. So the issue of community school, which is what many do not understand, is that behind this issue of community schools, there are people in other areas who have decided that it is their own government that is going to reign.
And who is going to issue them certificates?
And who issues them certificates? You understand? So a state under normal circumstances, I am speaking as an independent person, a state under normal circumstances will not want that. But the cry is that within these particular areas, if they have refused not to go to that block where they call government schools, for reasons thinking that the money which is collected goes to the government coffers, what you need to understand is that the management of that school has little, in most cases, nothing to do with that money leaving that community, because it is basically what they use to cater for the personnel who are sent to educate the children of that same area. So you see at the end of the day that if you think that that particular block that you despise is your problem, it's still coming back to fall on you.
Okay.
So we should take these.
The laboratories that are destroyed.
They are destroyed. They come back to fall on us. The computer labs.
They were constructed by PTA.
PTA constructed all of these things in these schools. That is what I'm talking about. So it is the same community that had to put up this. So if we think that we are destroying these things because it is going to affect that person in Yaoundé, this is not what will affect that person in Yaoundé. Guys, believe me,
okay.
I am 100% in support to ensure that the government, who is an employer of the people, is brought to order. But I'll never be in support that that child who has that right to go to school is kept in the house. I will never be in support of that.
Just to corroborate what he just said, one of the most difficult things to find in the Northwest and Southwest is not money. One of the most difficult things to find in the Northwest and Southwest is not job. The most difficult thing to find in the Northwest and Southwest is an honest person.
Okay.
It's very difficult to find an honest person. And a while ago when I went to Moya and somebody said, you have brought in this Cameroon JC to Moya, you'll be kidnapped. And I asked a question. The person that see that Cameroon JC, you don't like it, you kidnap me. And if you ask for ransom, what money am I going to give you? What currency are you going to receive?
Is it in dollars?
Is it in dollars? Or is it in what currency are you going to receive? Which currency are you going to buy? And we cannot have a better society without better persons. You cannot just say tomorrow will be better. Do you know why there's the PTA, why PTA constructs schools? Because PTA, Parents Teacher Association, the parents sat and saw that we want the best for our children. We want that our children should sit in a comfortable environment and learn. So that is why we are sacrificing, removing our own money. We are not looking at what the state is going to give to construct the classroom. We are removing it from our pocket such that our children should have the best of experience and can be able to compete with those of the upper class.
And that was why PTA came in. And if you look at the government secondary school Bombay Bakundu, a good number of those buildings were built by PTA. GBHS Moya were built by PTA. At the time when it started in one area, it moved now to the other side that was known as Benghazi or whatever. All of those structures were constructed by PTA. Because the PTA sat and said, our children, if we wait for government, it will be for far too long that we are going to wait for the government.
Which we have seen in other parts.
So what should we do? Our children, we should contribute money from our pocket and let our children have the best of experience such that they can compete with any child who studied in Europe. They can compete with any child who studied in Douala. That's why PTA is stronger in the Northwest and Southwest region, because we understood the value of having education, that it is an opportunity. This is what we are also missing, Mr. Kum. They thought education or school is just to go and sit and take down or no. There's what we call networking. Why some parents spend time in their little resources to send their kids to Sase is because they believe if their kid gets to Sase,
the kind of education.
We meet with Mr. Kum's child, we meet with this child, we meet with this child, we meet with this child. It's a network. That's why we send children to schools for networking. And because you bear with me, Dr. Ndimancho, that there are friends you have met of a higher class that are helping you today in secondary schools. Because it was network.
I eat in big restaurants.
Yeah, because
I want to meet at least
so it's networking. So why we send our kids to school is because we want them to go and build that network. So the fact that you reject your child from going to school, you are destroying the sole fabric of an economy of the life of that child, which is networking. Else anybody you can have your lectures in the house, you can have anything in the house, but we go to school for networking. It's who you know, that know who you know, that knows who you know. So it is the society is not how hardworking you are, but it is how much network you have. So for you to succeed is the network. You bear with me that jobs are advertised because the people cannot be able to see the people around their network who can do those jobs. Before they advertise, they look at their network. So who do you know? So I want to tell these people that we cannot have a better society without having better people today that can defend that better society. You say we should fight to the last man standing. If in the next 20 years, 25 years, we have that same independence, 25 years, after the 6 years, that's 30 years. What better society are we going to have? Because as we speak right now, if in the rank of those who are fighting, to have an honest person is like for an elephant to pass into the eye of a needle. My plea is that we should know that education is not just going to write 1 or 2, 3. Somebody sent a message in Bamenda that what if you go to the people who are giving this education are your enemies, who are teaching your people the wrong language and the wrong way of teaching, of doing things. That person who wrote that went to school. He learned how to write. He also probably is living a comfortable life, and you don't want people to live that comfortable life. We are killing the fabric of a nation. And believe me, I'm not a prophet of doom. If we continue like this in the next 15 years, you have high-level insecurity like you have never seen before in the Northwest and Southwest region.
We would have produced more enemies than we are fighting against now. This man, you are really mad. What are you saying? It's not good. The truth, sir. Ngole is writing from, Franco writing. This one says, Mr. Njuke Bias says, writing from Chang, I don't support the fact by which children, especially from Southwest and Northwest, they are becoming something else. The situation is becoming more dangerous. I, for one, I suggest the government can do something to support those poor parents at home by even providing them school equipment, pay part of their fees. Then some of these parents won't send their children to other francophone towns to schools. Yes, but you want them the government to help. They will help and then they will go to school. Where now? Micheal, please, you are bringing persons to insult us on our platform. Don't the program. How can this man say we are not honest? Okay.
But it's true. The most difficult person to find honest is an honest person.
Okay. This one, our Father God created us and educating us from all that we are able to do. Education is from God. Wisdom and knowledge comes from God, Father God. So schools should open their doors, okay, in the Northwest and Southwest regions, okay? This one says, I love the program so much. Ngole, writing from Boya. Ngole is the one who said these people are mad. He says he loves the program. Okay. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Leo, and all in the studio. Maybe he meant that those who are stopping people.
That's right. Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Leo, and
It
all
was
in the
ambiguous.
studio. I'm Belinda, writing from Bamenda. I'm working today because I managed to complete school in 2019. I think our right to education should be given a chance. Most people are tired of this, but can never say it due to life threats. We pray God help us, okay? Stop calling. Good evening, Mr. Kum and the wonderful panelists. More grace to your elbows. Very nice program. Do know many Anglophones too have bailed in other regions because of this madness. Mr. Kum, I really weep for my beloved brethren with this witchcraft mentality. Fai John is writing from Banyo. Banyo is in
Yes,
Adamawa.
Adamawa.
Yes, they're now IDPs. In a war-torn situation like we have in Cameroon, you know, there are lots of unwarranted activities that follow suit. Looting, extortion, stealing, mafia. Mr. Leo, this is actually coming from both sides. It is serious strategy to hold down schools by the ambas so as to continue exhibition of their presence. Good evening. Ekuri is writing from Tiko. Good evening. Over there in the studio, I am Anya Blessed, writing from Bamenda. Schools in Bamenda are already going on. Well, right inside the village, so schools can't be closed anymore, and we must fight for our future, okay? Good evening, Mr. Leo. I love this topic, but I have this one question. The Amber Boys are not forbidding schools, but their problem is they don't want the Anglophones should start school the same time with the Francophones. But the question is, are they going to also create their own examination, right? Or they are still going to write the same examination with the with La République, for example, the GCE, okay? This one says, I am surprised to hear children are not going to school. Where did the thousands of children who passed the GCE come from? Again, I see thousands of students graduating from the universities in Boya and Bamenda. Austin is writing from Boya. Greetings to you all. Tamboli Eric writing from Bamenda. I am so happy to hear you talking about education. We need a change. How would the change be perfect with the negligence on learners present in school? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. For how long has President Biya and Speaker of the Assembly been on seat? If my child was 35, hoping to be the next president, he should be 75 years now. It's never too late to learn. Philbert is writing. Okay, so you want your child to be out of school for 35 years. Okay, so that he will learn when he is old, okay? Don't read my message. The truth is that when you are hiding the truth, the fight continues. Okay, keep fighting, Afani. The fight will continue. Mr. Liu from Womb, please, let's fight against this attitude. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Leonard from DOP. I think that the issue of children not going to school is no longer an insecurity problem. The separatists are refusing the public schools from functioning because we have all private and professional schools are operating well here in DOP and elsewhere in the Northwest. Okay? You now justify why the government is closing those private schools. Hello, good evening, Mr. Leo and the crew on board. I think allowing our kids to go to school is the best option, but my fear is that the fact that this crisis has been commercialized endanger the lives of our children. And remember, a living dog is better than a dead lion. Okay? Awa is writing from Limbe. Awa, I'm sure your children are going to school in Limbe. Yes. Good evening to everyone in the house. Mr. Leo, you guys keep talking about school here and there. How will the children in CDC jurisdiction go to school with unpaid salaries for about 2 years today? Should they go into borrowing or holding arms to fight for their rights? Yes, you know why the people are not paid for 2 years now. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Your program is wonderful. God will bless you guys, educating light for our younger generation. Thanks you guys for very much for the program. Young Chief is writing from Kumba. To improve Southwest and Northwest school enrollment, the belligerents should stay away from school environment. The only way out of poverty is education. Therefore, we should invest in it. I am Shea Yenika writing from Kumba. God bless you all in the studio. Hello, sir. Thank you for your program for today. I'm in Bamenda and Pastor Chris, sir. May the Lord bless you all in Jesus' name. Amen. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm called K-Man from K-Town. Please warn my people to know that Ghana and Nigeria are studying French while this country are not bilingual. Even Muslims are studying French. Okay? Good evening, sirs. I love your topic for the evening. The education of the child is of prime importance and should neither be negotiated or pleaded for. It is only evident that those standing as obstacles are ignorant of this fact. The government, for me, is doing its best to protect these rights, and they are rights in all the material, particular in the means of protecting the rights of children. I have Ojong writing from Yaoundé. Yes, Doctor, people are not recognizing you.
Yeah, that's just. Do you think that I'm hiding my face and talking?
Yes. There was ghost town in Northwest and Southwest. What should we be talking about tomorrow in the Northwest and Southwest regions? Should mobilization start at the grassroots level?
And I think it has started already. Okay. And I'm very happy what happened, especially during these holidays. In most villages, you heard of unity football competition, unity sports competition. Particularly in my own village from Kornoni, I think it was a come and see. You saw that zeal, that zest, that people have to come back to normal life, to live back their normal lives. It is like celebrating Christmas for them. So I think most elites of the Northwest and Southwest region, they have done. I've heard this happen in many of these places around. And all of these, it was not just about bringing people together, it was in preparation for the new school year. And of course, from the echoes I've gotten, I think at least school has started, and it is better than it was last year, and we can really appreciate that. And one of the messages I really want to through to our brothers and sisters who the separatists is that let them not flex Moses. And because I already heard about stories of inter-army kind of deployment to the Northwest and Southwest. In my opinion, I will advise them to drop their arms and not to stand for any head-on confrontation with them. I think they should behave maturely and say, okay, in issues of schools, children are innocent. Children should not be used as pawns. Children should not be used to settle their scores. And I think that one of the things that you should do to gain support, I don't know, when I talk about support, it means that all of us know January in 2016 that there was an issue of marginalization, and that there was an issue of French teachers being sent to English schools, and that there was an issue of French magistrates being sent to courts in the North and South region, and that this we can settle together. If that fight was only for that, except there is really something behind it, if that fight is only for that, I think that it's a collective fight, and that we can only fight that fight efficiently and to the end if we allow our children go to school. Who is going to be able to petition the United Nations organization to come to Cameroon? I think that they do that in writing. Who is going to write? And I think we have to put reasoning ahead of everything. Rationale should be the issue. Because the way I see us reasoning, it appears as if there's a different agenda behind all of this. And this is what is causing the problem, causing the standoff. And I think we should encourage schools to go. And mobilization should be done. We should let something new happen in the North and South region. Tah Jarvis talked about markets being open, churches being open, football fields being open. Let schools be open. Let schools to be open. Let us see that ambience as school is opening. Let schools be open. Let children wear uniforms at least after 6 years. I think that if this is done, this is going to be a lot of credibility in the face of an international community that the separatists cherish so much, because they love the international community more than their enemies in Cameroon. They call them enemies. I think that we have to sit and settle this together. And we talk about, I'm surprised people are talking about community schools, because that's why I say we should put rationale here.
community schools to write the London GC or to write the Cameroon GC? This is a question we keep on asking because we lack strategists. Because before you plan to do something, you should think about how you are going to end that thing. You cannot be talking about schools when you don't know how you are going to end with those schools. Or you are going to send children to write in Nigeria, or you are going to send children to write in Ghana, where they are. I mean, I think that we have to put reasoning here, and if only when there is reasoning. And I see that all of these things is because down the line 6 years, we have become more illiterate. And we don't more reason anymore.
Okay.
That is why we are putting a decision that do not hold water.
Good evening. Why can the Cameroon government offer free education to Southwest and Northwest? Instead, they are closing community schools. How then can we say they are encouraging education in Southwest and Northwest? Writing from Kumba. Yes, but if you actually think that community schools should go on, why then are we asking schools not to go? Because we said it was insecurity now.
That is the thing.
So under what?
So are they telling us exactly that they know where the insecurity is coming from?
The bullets.
The bullets know. No, the bullets can identify government schools.
Government schools.
Yeah, no community schools.
Yes.
Well, that is where the problem is.
Okay. Just to say that we are out of time, we have to end here, and to note that we are being sponsored in this program by the Himata University Institute of Boya, one of the institutions that recorded the best results at the HND and national examinations this year. Himata University, in the days ahead, we're going to be receiving them here. Also tell us what your secret is. I know after the HNT was released, we received them here, but we're going to be receiving them in the days ahead. All the way from Boya, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. I would like to be closing with this quote from Nelson Mandela. He says that education is the most powerful tool you can use to change the world. That statement was made after the white minority was taken off the place. And today we hear of Mandela Washington program where young Africans will leave Cameroon and they go to the US. Now we have Mandela's name in the annals of the history of the United States that is never going to change. He got it through education. So if you think keeping that child in the house because the government of Cameroon being headed by Paul Biya puts the children at risk, or the Amber Boys in the diaspora and in the forest puts the children at risk, bear in mind that the risk you are thinking of cannot compare to that risk of illiteracy. The South Africans caused a lot of pain to others because they thought they got their jobs, which they are not even qualified to handle. So for no reason should the child sit in the house.
Okay.
And I want to also plead that if there is any internally displaced child in the My16 community who is not going to school for any reason, please contact us for that child to go to school. Don't keep that child in the house. If there is any orphan, bring the child to us. Any child who is not going to school for any reason, let us know. Because these are the category we want to remove amongst the people and ensure that they have education.
Thank you for coming, Tah Jarvis.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I want to say a special good evening to the president of the Catholic University of Boya, Professor Victor Julius Gore, and also to the Bishop of Boya, His Lordship Michael Bibi, and the peace-loving people of Way Village.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you for coming.
Thanks so much, Mr. Liu. It's a pleasure, and I think as a teacher, it will be a pleasure for me to get great reports coming from Kornoni, from Uku, from Wum, from Buabua, from Kimbin River, from Aku, and all of those places. I think already I got from Manfe already. There were very good reports this afternoon that school has started, and I was so happy. So I think that we'll continue with this, and tomorrow we should be a better people.
Okay, tomorrow, if you're watching us and you are an institution that's watching us, I'm going to have a special edition on Back to School, where we're going to have a summary of how schools have taken off from across the nation. We're going to have reports from Adamawa, from the center, northwest, southwest, west regions, as from 10 a.m. tomorrow. If you are an education institution that would want to sponsor that program, please call me after this program using the number on your screen so that we can work together to discuss on tomorrow's special edition on Back to School. We want to thank you, Desmond and Eli, for producing this edition of the program, not forgetting Tabby Bryant, who is supervising the work we do out here. Special greetings to you, the president of the Himata University Institute of Boya, Mr. Chilaka Jut. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.